Basically, wanted to talk to you about what's going on this year with edge computing. Last year, we were talking with One Stop Systems about the AI transportable concept and where those systems fit in the overall edge computing landscape. Now, among the use cases you were describing last year for data centers at the edge were aircraft and military applications and autonomous vehicles, things like heavy duty equipment that are in mines. How focused are you going forward on expanding into new markets like that or targeting opportunities like the transportation industry?
Yeah, so the AI transportable strategy that we put in place identified actually 16 different verticals that we would approach, eight in the military and eight in the commercial industrial area. And what we're seeing happen is certain ones are blossoming and we're getting a lot of activity and traction in. And for example, one of them is in autonomous trucks on the commercial industrial side. And that is something that where we appear to be the market leader, and is a market segment that could result in revenues to the company of over $1 billion. So it is significant. It's a very large, fast-growing market.
And is that $1 billion figure like a 5 year market plan or longer?
Yeah, the actuals on that is based on third-party data for autonomous trucks. In 2025, the total opportunity for products that we build is somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion. And at 2030, it is between $5 and $10 billion.
Okay, so we're talking addressable market. Well, so speaking of money and earnings, you mentioned on an earnings call recently that the Centauri Storage Accelerator, which is a complement to the Rigel Edge Supercomputer project, is doing well, and that there's a role that product has played in 4 new program wins in Q1. Tell us in brief, what is a storage accelerator and what is its role in the autonomous transportation use case?
Yeah, using the autonomous truck, which is its main area it's winning currently, but it's going to be applicable to others. What it basically does is that if you back up a little bit, an autonomous truck, when it's driving, and they've driven hundreds of thousands of miles autonomously with our equipment on board, it is collecting vast amounts of data, terabytes upon terabytes. And it's doing some processing using our compute on board, so our storage and compute, but it also comes into a hub, and what they want to do is remove that memory as fast as they can and plug in another set of memory. So historically what they did is they went into the back where the sleeping cabinet used to be, where the computer and the storage is. They would remove the hard drives, put new hard drives in. What we've done for them, defined with them, is built this accelerator that sits on the side of the truck. So somebody can walk up to the truck, open a hatch, and slide a hot swappable canister that has many terabytes of data and slide in a new one, and the truck can go on. And so this accelerator storage interfaces via PCI Express cable to the main system. And that way they can get the memory off, which then they dump it into a server in the hub, and it uploads over a course of weeks or days all that data. There is no network, there's no airway to dump that data quickly because it's so large, so you have to physically move the memory.
So not only when a driver gets to their destination, they have to offload their pallets, but they're also offloading their data now. Which
Correct.
is kind of an interesting new.
Correct.
Is that something that you would see the drivers themselves doing, or somebody with the transportation company itself?
Yeah, it's definitely not the drivers. It's there are these hub locations that these people reside, and so they would be coming and addressing that. There is currently in these autonomous trucks driving around, there is a person in the truck sitting in the driver's seat, but 99.9% of the time he is not driving the truck. He's only there as a backup as these trucks are learning and getting better and better at their autonomous function. So that person wouldn't be the one coming out and do it. It'd be somebody at the hub.
Well, speaking of autonomous vehicles, we say that word, and I think a lot of people think of things like Teslas and other futuristic vehicles that are driving themselves around without driver intervention. Describe for us basically what you are seeing in the autonomous vehicle market, you know, in comparison to things that people are familiar with, which is Teslas driving around autonomously without a person in the vehicle. What are you seeing in the autonomous vehicle market, and where are you playing
Yeah.
a role right now?
Yeah. So, one of the interesting facts that most people are not aware of, unless you've studied this market, is that autonomous trucks are much further along in being reality than autonomous cars. And one of the dynamics is that the autonomous truck has an economic pull that is enormous because of the 80,000 shortage, 80,000 driver shortage that's going to go to 1 million over time. And the fact that you're buying more on Amazon than you ever have, and you're going to require even more trucks. So the demand is an economic one, and an autonomous truck can produce an ROI twice as fast as a regular truck. So the Amazons of the world, the UPSs, the FedExes, the Hunt Foods, they want this. So that's what's driving it to happen sooner. As a result, there's more money going at it, and they're doing it at a much more professional level. And in fact, the bad rep is that, Tesla, for example, have had accidents. It is not an autonomous car. It's not ready for prime time. It's a nice feature. Whereas autonomous truck guys, they've had no accidents. There was a report just out 3 or 4 days ago from the safety board citing zero accidents caused by a semi truck over this period of time. So again, I want to repeat that this is a market happening before autonomous cars. And as a result, there's many trucks on the road already.
I can imagine that things like the pandemic, which changed our work habits a lot, are also going to change our interest in autonomous driving Teslas, right? If I don't really need to spend 3 hours driving to work into the San Francisco Bay Area anymore, the demand for that kind of technology is going to be slower, as you're noting, than that for trucks. Now, what else are you seeing in terms of the transportation market? I think you were remarking that a lot of the training, so to speak, of these vehicles has been taking place on open highways. Is that starting to work its way into the city systems, or is it still largely autonomous on the open highway?
Yeah, great question. One of the reasons this market is being able to develop is that the economics are so strong that it's willing not to have the perfect solution. And if you think of what a truck does, and the real value is being able to get a truck to go across coast to coast in 2 days rather than 4 days. And because 99%, 99.99% of the time would be on a highway, if they can solve the problem just on the highway, that's a big benefit. So that's exactly what they're doing. They call it hub to hub. And so the truck in an autonomous fashion will only drive the highway miles, which is about 1/3 the complexity of doing a city miles. So you can imagine a truck's driving along, and if it needs refueling, it would pull into a hub, which is right off the freeway. It would refuel. Once it got to its destination, it would empty its cargo or trailer, and a regular truck would take it to the Walmart or the final destination through the city, and it would load on another one to autonomously go back on the highway. So that is the dynamic that's happening there.
And I guess the other thing that people are often conflating is, again, because Teslas are all electric, that maybe this autonomous vehicle future will also be all electric. But I don't think that's what you're actually seeing in the transportation market currently, right? I mean, are we seeing installation of edge computing into existing vehicles, right? Internal combustion engine vehicles?
Correct. In fact, in my slide deck, I show this picture of this future looking truck. And what I point out to people, that's not what's happening. We're not waiting for that. So we're taking regular trucks built by Peterbilt, they're diesel trucks, and adding basically an option to them that will give it this autonomous capabilities. Everything else is normal in the truck. It gets the autonomous capabilities by adding LiDAR, radar, cameras around the perimeter and other sensors. Those feed into our compute and storage systems and work with the software of the system to control the vehicle. So that is what's happening. So the electric portion versus the diesel is totally independent. So that doesn't mean it can't be an electric truck. It just means they're not tied to each other. And the first autonomous trucks will be primarily diesel.
So another aspect of what you're working on is that you're serving markets where there are obviously harsh conditions. There's vibration, there's extreme temperatures, cold and hot, and that's central to your company's product development efforts. While customers, on the one hand, are wanting more compute and storage power to deal with data for applications such as autonomous vehicles, you have to balance that against power consumption and cooling. How are you addressing some of these challenges? Is there any areas of research you can mention in terms of technology such as liquid cooling?
Yeah, first of all, what is so exciting for us in a lot of these market segments we're talking about, including autonomous trucks, their position is give me as much performance as you can, and my environment's harsh. And that's our sweet spot. That's what we do. We take the latest and greatest technology from the data center and we bring it into these harsh environments and it survives. And we're really kind of standalone on that. But what it does also mean is if we're going to be valuable to the customer, we have to solve some of the other problems, which are the ones you've listed, which includes, getting enough power to it and the cooling. For example, none of these trucks, none of these cars, none of these autonomous vehicles were designed to have a 3,000 watt computer sitting in them. And so there's work that goes along with these autonomous truck companies to help with that and do conversion of the power. Maybe it's 24 volt or 48 volt into something the computer can work with. And then the second is cooling, which you mentioned. And so we're making investments in cooling that's optimized for an autonomous truck and working with people to do that. Liquid cooling, that is.
Which is always an interesting challenge. Obviously, data center providers are looking at ways to use things like immersion cooling or some other methods of using liquids to take heat away from chips. I guess when you get into a vehicle, having liquid sloshing around is it's part of the package, but when you're doing it around electronics, it's a bit of a challenge. Is that something that you feel like your team is going to handle in-house, or do you have some suppliers that are working with you on some of those challenges?
Yeah, so we have suppliers and partners working with us on two different aspects of liquid cooling. One is the type of plate cooling where there's actually a plate that sits on like the CPU and the GPUs and liquids flowing through the system. And then we have somebody else that's working with us on full immersion. And we're working with one of the leaders there. We have a close relationship with them. And we're creating some very disruptive, innovative products for the truck space and others where the system would be fully immersed. And what helps here is that we can do this in a very compact form factor. We were able to get rid of the heat, and also the liquid, we're working with it to actually help the ruggedization of the system. So we're doing a lot of work there. We haven't shared a lot of information on it, but it's a big focus, and we believe it's a door opener in a lot of these AI transportable markets.
I guess I have to be a little bit amused that we're a long time ago when I had my own pickup truck, I had to change the radiator and the radiator fluid, right? And now we're maybe talking about every 100,000 miles, do I need to change the fluid on my computer?
Exactly. It's a different world.
Well, so you mentioned also, I don't know if it was you or one of the other executives who mentioned on the recent earnings call that you might be looking at not only partnerships, but perhaps some acquisitions. I know as a public company, you can't say this is my particular target, but what are some areas of interest in terms of technologies where you could see down the road maybe an acquisition might make sense?
Yeah, so we're focused primarily in that. First of all, the opportunity on an organic level with the stuff we're working on is so great that it would be a mistake if we got too distracted by M&A. But as a result of things like the autonomous truck space, which is so large, what we're looking for is acquisitions down the road that potentially would make us stronger, more value to the customer, and basically hard to replace. And so that tends to drift into the area of potentially cooling, power supplies, additional software layers. We have a software team and we're adding software layers, but doing more on that area. It could drift into safety functions. You know, if you think of a truck, there's going to be a lot of safety built into that thing before it hits the road with nobody in it. So being able to add more value on that front. So that's what we think will drive our M&A strategy, as opposed to what we're not really focused on is rolling up other HPC companies. We think we do something really well, and we can add value by branching out and adding technology to it rather than just have more of the same.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had any other final thoughts you would like to maybe add in, something that I perhaps missed in our conversation so far.
Yeah, I would say that we're interested in the space. We already are designed in, working with three of the top players, and I'm not aware of any other company that's got three of these guys. We have other people that we know of that have one. We knew somebody had two, but we bumped one of them out. And we look like we have a leadership position in this area, so it's exciting. We see not only the production where they're doing training, the development, but also being a player long term in the production. That's our intent, and that's what we're working with and focused on as a company.
And so, if we were going to come back and talk to you in, say, another year and then another 5 years, what percentage of your overall business do you think this would be? Or is that getting, again, too much into the stock disclosure?
No, I'll tell you what I tell investors, and that is that these three autonomous truck companies will be in our top 10 this year. Next year, there's probably an inflection point where they could end up being 1, 2, and 3. If not in 23, that could easily happen in 24 because the opportunity is so large. And then if we layer on additional players in this market, that would only enhance that. So this is big business. And the other thing I tell investors is that we're growing somewhere between 15 and 25% a year. This growth that could come from this market would be an inflection point that would be much greater than that. It's just a matter when the volumes go from being 25 systems at a time to hundreds of systems to thousands of systems. One of the other things I would just add is something that's pretty interesting is that since these trucks have been on the road for hundreds of thousands of miles, there's a good chance if you live in the Southwest United States, you have passed one and you never knew it. And that's kind of a scary thought to a lot of people. And they are driving autonomously, but they do have that person for now in there. But eventually that person goes away.
So who's going to honk the horn when my kid waves from the window now, right? Is it going to be the computer vision system?
Absolutely.
Well, actually, since you mentioned growth, I just thought, what percentage of your business is international? And is that an opportunity as well going forward? Or sounds like there's plenty going on in the North American market.
Yeah, so our main business is North America and Europe, a much smaller degree in Asia. And right now we're primarily focused on those two areas, but there's opportunities for this market segment and others in Asia. So the autonomous truck is the biggest opportunity right now is in North America, but we're also pursuing it in Europe. And some of our customers are pursuing that in Europe also. As far as AI transportables in general, same situation. We're very involved on the military front with the U.S., but we're also starting to get engaged with NATO and look forward to that because they're looking for some of the same things the U.S. Armed Forces are looking for. Another comment I'd make is that I started this off by saying there were these 16 verticals. In the military, it's things like a submarine's one, a plane's one, a tank is one. In the case of the industrial commercial segment, some of the other ones are autonomous farming tractors, autonomous mining equipment, autonomous buses, and all of those have a potential, and they are in early phases of that also, or they're using less sophisticated technology, but are an opportunity to leverage the same things we're doing in autonomous trucks.